The Matthew Dark Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, praise God and welcome in. This is the Matthew Dark Show. Now remember, hit subscribe everywhere you get your shows. Never miss an episode. We thank you in advance for that. It's 6 months till the midterms, and for some states, it's all on the line. There's about 7 completely demonic states right now in the union, California being one of them, maybe the head of this beast that has been under Democratic control for too long. And the consequences are obvious. Even Stevie Wonder, Helen Keller, all of our famous blind people can see what happens to states under Democrat-led policy. We have an independent running for governor in the state of California, 2026. Lewis Herms joins us. Now, sir, I want to welcome you in and thank you for doing this. I want to get to how the moment you came and said, now you're a lifelong Californian. And so you've seen this beautiful state absolutely erode before your very eyes. And there is no doubt about that. The growing homeless community, the drugs, the crime, the filth, the them, theys, the whole thing. They've got it all in California. Welcome in, sir. I guess give us a little taste of what it was like. You're sitting there as a lifelong resident and you say, this is the year that I'm going to set it all aside and go serve the great people of California. Welcome in, sir.
Thank you so much. And you actually laid it up just perfectly of what's going on out west in California. So what it really came down to is this: I have a fairly large platform. I've been working hard for the people for several years before diving into politics, which are about the most disgusting thing on the planet. And I thought I could maybe put the weight of my platform behind somebody. That was the goal. So I went and I looked at, I knew I couldn't go for a Democrat because I've seen the makeup and I believe they're all controlled at the moment. And it's a cabal situation. So I said, okay, let me look at the Republicans. So I went up and down the Republican list. And frankly, they were missing some points that I thought were epically important and points that I've been covering and helping with for a long time. And that would be, they weren't talking about election fraud. They weren't talking about what I call the medical mafia. They're not talking about the parasites that control things, and nobody was talking about child sex slavery, which blew me away. So all these things based on what I've done, the documentaries and so on and so forth, were near and dear to my heart. So I said, God, what am I doing here? And the answer that came back was actually different than I thought. I thought it's going to be Lewis, do another documentary, travel up and down California, wake people up. And it was, you're running for governor. And I have to be frank, and people get upset with me. I said, I argued with God. I said, no, I'm not running for governor, right? And people say, how dare you argue with God? I go, well, I think God likes that relationship that we have between each other. So, and he said, yes, you are. So I said, okay, yes, sir. What's that look like? And he said, you're the disruptor and the educator, and we'll see where it goes from there. And that's exactly what we've done. And now we're getting a lot of traction. We just did a debate. I think we crushed it last night. So we're working hard. I mean, that's what we're doing, but it's taking a completely different tact. In fact, we were called the anti-petition. So we decided instead of to run from that, we put it on our bus. And it seems to be the number one thing that attracts people to us. They do not want politics anymore.
Amen to that. What I think you just want to highlight what you just said, the reason we have such decay in America, such decay in these wild left states, is you have leaders that don't follow God. They don't submit to God. They don't get their wisdom from God. They're getting this from certainly Satan. I mean, certainly Satan is the only one capable of getting and capturing a mother who knew she gave birth to a baby boy. And then as a 6-year-old, they're going to take it to some maniac doctor and make it into an opposite sex. I think only Satan is capable of that kind of depravity. And so we first submit to the Lord Jesus Christ and we get all that. We run big decisions through him, i.e., should we go after the Epstein files people, Lord? Yeah, go defend children. Should we go bomb Iran and all these other, that has to come from the Lord. And if he's not giving it a blessing, you're not doing those things. So that's the number one problem right now in politics. They don't pay any attention to God. And then they're missing the stuff that's speaking to the American people. And what's going on in California goes on in Colorado and New York and Oregon and Washington. Those 7 states have just completely detached themselves from anything we would have ever considered American or of the Lord or of values or of safety. How did this happen in California? Because go back to at least just even 1992, Bill Clinton and George Bush. Bush won California, Clinton won Texas, and it's been all over ever since. How did California find itself in this situation, or is it as simple as fake, fraudulent elections, and this is the result?
Yeah, it's deeper and darker than that, Matthew, for sure. In fact, I just did a presentation in Vegas not too long ago called "The Devil's Lair," that really really articulated what was going on. And there's you have 4 families that have been controlling things together for a long time. When I say together, they are linked closer than a steel leak chain can be, and that would be the Gettys, the Newsoms, the Pelosi's, and the Browns. Mm-hmm. And then they've been controlling things from the outside and the inside and the public for a long time, and it's deep and dark. Now, frankly, this is my opinion. I think a lot of it has to do with child sex trafficking and deeper than that. But it's definitely control. It's definitely money. But the reason why I call it the Devil's Lair is because it goes so dark in what's going on here, and you named it. When you can take a child, and for some reason somebody looks at that child, even a parent. This is what blows me away. A parent looks at their own child and say, "That's not the right sex. We have to change that." Like, what the hell's going on in your head that you would even think about that? Well, what's going on is the influence, the satanic element, and the constant speak to them of what they're told is right. Now, we have to remember everything's flipped on its head. So what they're told is right is wrong, and what is wrong is right. I mean, this is just madness. So what would be wrong right now in California, according to some entities, would be good Christians. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Go figure that. What would be right is changing the sex of a minor without them having any consent whatsoever. So that's satanic if I've ever seen it.
It's completely satanic. There's almost like an acceptance and a now submission to the dark side. And it's our job as Christian and spirit-filled men to rebuke and reject that. And that's why you're doing what you're going to do. And so it requires one person led by God who has the support of other godly people saying, we're taking it back. We claiming authority in California over you, Satan, and be gone. That's the only mentality. It's the only save to places like Colorado, California, New York, Illinois, really demonic, deep, dark stuff. But I think you've talked about something that's even greater. The fact that Republicans, every Republican runner, conservative, and I appreciate the independents running, because you can't vote for a Democrat and look at yourself in the mirror. That's not on the table. And now, if you want to be Republican, what do? You have to support the protection of pedophilia. You have to bomb and invade other countries. You have to continue this constant inflation cycle that goes on in America. Every time we start another war, you and I pay more. Nothing benefits except cost of living goes up. Okay. We're so sick of it. We're so out of it. We don't have the money, the resources, or the desire to pursue these overseas things when we're suffering in our own neighborhoods, like you're describing. Homelessness in California is epic. It is a growing population. It is an expensive population. The amount of money that California has spent on its homeless situation is breathtaking and not working. How do we come and tackle that problem? We cannot have people living on the streets and growing and taking once beautiful cities and completely destroying them. How do we fix the homelessness in California?
Yeah, let me address how we got here first, Matthew, and then I'll go into the homeless. So how we got here, and you kind of touched on it, is the Democrats and Republicans are pushed up as the authority, as these are the ones to look at. These are the decision makers. Well, I like to go back and see what the founding fathers said about that. John Adams, James Madison, and George Washington all indicated that the death of America would be a two-party system. It's illusion of choice. Machiavelli talked about this. Plato, all the way back then, talked about this. Noam Chomsky said this is how you control a society, is with an illusion of choice. Thomas Jefferson had it figured out. He said, if I had to choose between going to heaven or picking a party, he goes, I would not go to heaven. He would not pick a party because he knew that this is where the control. So you have an operation, which is the Democrats right now, which I believe is the holy satanic operation. And then you have a captured operation, which is the Republicans.
Yes.
Right. So we have an illusion of choice. So I say no parties. It doesn't make sense. Just what's the person in front of you? Has he or she shown you the makeup to be able to help and work for the people, or has they not? What are the fruits of their labor? And
Yes.
then I'd like to go into Meek in a second, because I think it's been a massive manipulation of the Bible. But in regards to homelessness, so you have the Newsom administration that spent somewhere between 27 billion and 30 billion and it's done absolutely nothing. Well, yes, they have. They've grown it about 50%. So
Jeez.
think about, you're spending money and the homelessness is growing about 50%. I talked to a gentleman. He stopped us at a gas station last night. His name's Steven. And he says, I am newly homeless. And I said, what does that mean? He goes, I'm living out of my car. Why is that? He goes, I have a disability. He says, everybody that shouldn't get benefits, all the people on drugs, everybody is getting benefits. And I am not willing to go into a shelter. By the way, it's not a government supported shelter, it's just a shelter. He says, where the drug addicts are in there and they're awake, they're keeping me awake all night. And I can't even look around because I think my stuff is going to get stolen, right? With no security. He says, so I have to live in my car right now. He goes, why is it, Lewis, that I can't get help when I want a job and I want to work hard and I want to work through this disability, which I can do in about 3 months? And I said, well, that's exactly right, Stephen, because the system is broken. The system is working in a way where it is just capturing the money, and then they have whatever political payoffs or games they have. I said, but this homeless situation is actually fairly easy to solve. But the first thing you have to do is you have to look at each individual as human, which is not done right now. And you have to separate and put them into categories, because not all homeless should be equal. There is a difference. You have some that want to be on the streets and want to take drugs. That's a harder apparatus to work with than the ones that actually want to get a job and they want to work through it. And then you have the drug addicts and the abusers of alcohol that want to get off of that. And then you have the taboo, the one that nobody wants to talk about. You have the mentally ill. And guess what? We should absolutely open up mental institutions again.
Yes.
The difference is we don't treat it like we did. The reason why they shut them down in the 80s is you can't pump these people up with Thorazine and have them walk like zombies through the hallway. Right. You have to try to see if there's anything you can do and treat them humanely. Now, everything I just said, including triaging seniors and vets and people that really want to get off the streets immediately into warehouses with security, all of that costs 1/10 of what they stole from us. It is simple. And if it's simple, it's God's work. If it's messy, something else is going on.
Amen to that. And that's what it is. We're advocating these people. They can't all go to jail and they can't live on the streets. So we need mental institutions that invest in the person. This is a one-time thing. We're going to get you right, and then we're going to send you on mission. And I'm going to say this too. Homeless people cannot live in a city or a state as expensive as California. You can't be there. So there has to be an infrastructure for them to where they can do a job as they're rehabilitating in a state without this suffocating inflation. And it's beginning to sweep the whole nation. You know, I used to think New York and California, like, gosh, you could never afford to live in those places. And you still can, but now that's come home. And so we can't put these people set up to failure where you got to make $4,000 or $5,000 a month just not to be homeless. That is not acceptable. It's not a system that's working in a country that says how, you know, the prosperity is just not equal. And so that to me is a number one issue. But these are all home-based issues. And this is what we're so disappointed with at the federal level. America First, Make America Great Again, investing in its people. We have incredible crime in this country. We have 2 million children living in poverty. These are unacceptable issues as we're distracted all over the world. And that's why states are going to have to just take this over themselves. But it must be Christian-led, American people first policy, or we're just not interested. I think this is an amazing cycle to be an independent, to be somebody who is left, because think about it. you cannot look at yourself in the mirror and say, I voted for Kamala Harris, I voted for Joe Biden, and I have no regret. I mean, you have to have regret. But what's unfortunately happening now is that's moved its way into the right now. Things are not going well. They have been betrayed on the right. There is a clear separation of what was said during the campaign and now what we can see. The fruit is rotten because we don't have that investment in the American people. I know what most people are looking for. They're looking for peace and joy and comfort and safety in their lives. And instead, we've got them taxed to the brim. We've got them inflated to the brim. We don't have safe communities. And we have this ongoing sort of America last mentality. So the states are going to have to come in and say it's a California first issue. And we're just oblivious to the federal government. It's the only way that this we don't have any impact at the federal level. That's clearly being seen. But your state has a chance. Your local, your governorship, your representation, you at least have a chance at that. And then we think about, okay, but are the elections safe, secure, or fake and phony? What is the situation as far as election fraud in California? I know there's heavy fraud in Colorado. We know Tina Peters saw that fraud unfold and was sentenced to 9 years. But what's the landscape of the fraud in the elections like in California?
Yeah, first though, you nailed it. We were set up as a republic, so the states should be autonomous to the federal government anyways. We're not looking for somebody to fly in on a white Pegasus and save us. We need to save ourselves.
Yes.
Right. And that's we the people. I've said it's we the people for a long time. You know, one of the smallest voting blocks are Christians, and which is scandalous. I think one of the reasons why is they've been manipulated from the pulpit. And what I mean by that, so one of my favorite passages, probably the best passage for me, is Matthew 5:5, the meek shall inherit the earth. But that word meek has been misinterpreted, and that's heavy, because if you look back to the origins of meek, it's about strength. It's about strength under power. It's about patience and strength and protecting others, right? Look at the Greek translation. It was a horse named Praus, which was a war horse. Amazing. Jesus called himself meek, right? When he's flipping over tables, I don't think he was very passive. Moses was meek, walking through the desert for 40 years. So the misinterpretation has been a great way to pacify Christians, in my opinion. If we knew that we were strong and we had it within us, I think we would have stood up a long time ago and taken our country back, our state back, so on and so forth. But in regards to the election fraud, so I'm on a 58 county tour right now as we speak. I think we've done or somewhere around 40 already, where I'm going into the offices and interviewing every single ROV, which is Register of Voters, that there is. Now, here's what I've determined. And I've been investigating this a long, long time. And with the top people in India, with the Mark Cooks and the David Clements and the Dr. Doug Franks. These are the type of people I work with on a daily basis sometimes. Here's what I believe, and yes, I believe there's fraud in California. I think it's undeniable. I think we're pointing at the county clerks, the Register of Voters, and I don't think that's where it's really happening in most cases. And I believe it's very easy to look at them as being the issue, when in fact the issue, and I've asked these questions, I said, let's assume that there's no voter fraud inside your counting center. What do you do about ballots outside that come in that are fraudulent? And unilaterally, they say, we process them. Well, there's your answer, isn't it?
Exactly.
So they can count, they can get a good count. Now, I personally believe, or I know because I've seen it, that many of the machines have access to the internet and can be accessed from the outside. So I have some theories on this. In fact, I kind of have facts. I'm putting everything together, and we're going to do a documentary very, very soon. But I would say 90% of the county clerks are doing their job correctly, and they think they're doing a great job. Right. The challenge is what they don't know is what's killing us, and it's outside. Just think about it. I just did an audit not too long ago on one city in California, and 42% of the voters on the voter rolls were invalid. 42%. That's
so
what
it's pretty obvious.
So,
the fraud is there. It's rampant and it's all over. It's how we got the 81 million.
Right, exactly. So here's the deal, and this is what people have to understand. So there's a saying that goes out there that there's not widespread voter fraud.
Right.
Well, okay, that's a psyop because they're right.
Exactly.
There's not widespread voter fraud. It's very targeted. They know exactly what they're doing. They go into the cities because if it was widespread, they'd be caught like this. If anybody
Exactly.
understands military operations, it's compartmentalized. Everything's very compartmentalized. The person could be processing fraudulent ballots and they have no clue what they're doing. It's meant to be that way because it's so hard to catch them. So when the saying is there's no widespread voter fraud, they're just literally mocking the deep state narrative, right?
Yes.
When they don't even know what that means, because they're right, there is none. But that's just all that is to me a Freemasonic flip to point you in a different direction when really there is absolute voter fraud, but it's hyper targeted, and that's why it's so successful.
Yeah, you don't need to come in and every state 90-10, the Democrat won. You're just needing to reverse 4, 5, 6,000 votes in a precinct
Right.
or a county and area, and you won. I mean, and then of course we have all this gerrymandering, we have all this redistricting. This is all fraudulent attempts to steal and keep power for good, and we continue to allow it. And the Constitution, it actually requires us at some point to take the government back and start over. Once
Right.
it's confirmed, they've completely violated their end of the deal. And I don't feel like as an American people, we are there yet. We're still in that slow boil. We're still pretty comfortable. We're not really ready to take up arms or throw our life. Christ says, sell everything, follow me. We kind of are in that moment now to where all this stuff that has been occupying our minds and keeping us busy. Moms are all working full time now. It's go, go, go. Got to make every cent. Got to keep up with the Joneses. Can't buy houses. It's catastrophes for families everywhere. How close do you think that the people and I would think there's some kind of unity brewing between the right and the left and meet at this independent level in which it's not working for even the blue hair person that feels comfortable to walk around and hold some other guy's hand or whatever they're doing. I mean, clearly it's not working for them. They have less money, less security, less safety. And then you look at the right and it's like, well, we were promised these certain things. How close do you think the American people are from really saying, we've had enough, you've crossed our red line, or has this got to get much worse before there's that snap reaction?
Closer, and yes, it has to be a snap reaction. Unfortunately, I've studied this psychology for a lot of years, and let's use the house for example. Since you used the word erosion, if
Yeah.
you're sitting on a hill and it's slowly eroding under you over decades, right? You're probably not going to do anything reactionary to fix the house. That's just the reality, or to fix the foundation, right? But if you lose half your house in one day, the next thing you're doing is you're doing everything you can to rebuild the hill, relocate the house, something like that. And unfortunately, we've been in the frog in the pot for a long time. So the erosion has been happening a long time. So therefore, I don't think people react. But by proxy, the system keeps you so busy scrambling for your next dollar or taking your kids to a soccer game or whatever you're doing. It keeps you so busy that you don't even know what you don't know. Therefore, you don't fight back. So I've said for years, and I hope I'm wrong, but you know what? I'm to the point where it has to happen. It has to happen. I believe a massive financial crash where it affects people's bank accounts when they run out of money or their banks refuse to give them money, then they'll say we're done.
Bingo. That's a sad indictment on the American heart. And I thought that too. Once it comes after that, because you've seen they'll vaccinate their children to keep their job. They'll comply with a
Yep.
mask and all sorts of to keep that paycheck. Once that thing's gone, though, and I think the government knows that that's that kind of final string to pull. They have to be ready to fully control the population once they say your programmable money is not going to work today because of your conduct or your choices or you're suspended. And that would be it. And I think they know that. We do need that in America, as sad as that sounds, to where everybody is wiped out. This is not currently a system worth fighting for the American people. Number one issue, and I'm so glad it's on your agenda, it's on your program, is we have to protect children. We have to, you are not a country, you are not a nation, you are not a leader if you cannot protect children. Period. End of story. It stops right there. Okay. Number two, we actually need an inflation and a cost of living that is sustainable. Right now, it just does this. There is no relief coming. So any and all things that give relief to the American people, and I'm talking about the 90% of people that have children, want a house, work all the time, would, they rarely take vacation, but it would be nice in someday to think about things like that. Basic stuff. We're not talking about yachts and Lamborghinis for the average American people. They just want to live without suffocating every day. And then we demand safety. So we demand a closed border. We demand mass deportations. That's not happening right now. So we really have a critical moment coming up, because here's what I'm concerned about. And, again, it could be just the season for radical change in leadership. We are beyond betrayed when it comes to the Epstein files. I don't think anybody that looks at that situation and says that was done well, they're lying to themselves. Okay. We can't accept that. We can't accept this idea of no new wars and cost of living and all these things. This has all been a betrayal. And so we're sitting on a moment in time in which everything's on the table. The status quo is not working. The status quo candidates are never going to work. This is a great moment. And I just want to highlight your story, because this is one of my favorite stories of all of them. This is the American dream. Single mom, food stamps, grinding it out, learning professions as a teenager, have some nice career highlights, built a business, and now says, I want to come back. That cannot leave. I mean, we need hearts like that and those kind of kids all over the country. Yeah, my circumstances aren't the great, but you know what? They told me that if I work my butt off, if I try my best, if I do the right thing, I could make it in this country. And that's being eroded away, taken away. So I just wanted maybe just a little bit of your experience on that and why that is. There's so much substance behind that kind of a background. You are not a Gavin Newsom placed person. You're going to be the mayor, then the governor, then the president. We've got this all lined up. It's been a grind for you. Maybe just a little bit for the listener, just on what that was like to get to this moment and be in a position to help your fellow Californian.
I think any hardship that I had as a child has benefited me today, actually. I mean, yeah. I looked at all of it as a positive. And it's interesting, growing up in the San Fernando Valley, I'd walk around barefoot. And now I can tell you there's 4 kids that are in foster care because their feet were dirty and they were ripped out of a Clark County hotel. So, I mean, this is true stories. And this is the type of stuff that happens now today with this progressive woke mentality. But there was a time where there was a level playing field. Yeah. And I felt that was through the 60s and the 70s where I grew up. And it didn't matter your ideology, the color of your skin. It only mattered about what your work ethic and what you can put together. So I felt, as my Black and Hispanic friends felt in the 70s, that is, we could all be successful. And then suddenly the system started come crashing down on us. Right. And it has been a grind. And then the more ethical you are, the harder it is to accomplish anything. So that's where we are today. And what drove me into this is when I saw tyranny just build and build and build over the last few decades, I really just said I had enough, and sacrificed a business that we had. And we hopped on board, and I started doing something called the Truth Tours and waking up people throughout the United States, which brought me here today running for governor.
Well, it's a wonderful story. It's kind of what you hope to do with, you give it back to this other generation. I mean, the baby boomer generation and kind of the, I don't know, call it 55, 60 and up, they had a very different playing field, as you just described. You could buy an $80,000 house. Mom could stay home. Dad could be, many professions and do that and have a family. And now mom's taxed to the brim, and we don't have time for church, and we don't have time for this. And we don't get to sit down and think, now, where did the government lie to us today? So I am hoping for simplicity, calmness coming over the American family. Let them really marinate in what's happened to this country. We have to have some messenger that's going to put something in the heart of American people that says, okay, I'm in. And I thought it would be the child sex stuff, meaning that should be, I know you like, this stuff over here and I'm for over here, but we both can agree, you touch a child, you should die. And so if you can't agree on that, I'm not sure that there's an issue that could unify the average American, but I believe it is. And I pray every day. I pray every day for a couple of things: that the Lord Jesus Christ would overwhelm politicians all over this country, meaning they cannot get away from him. He is hunting them down, convicting them. And you watch those changes. It's the only way, because it doesn't sound very fun to start a militia, take up arms. We all head down to Washington, D.C. and say, we're taking it back. That doesn't sound like the best way. But the Lord could change hearts. He could change the spirit of the nation. We have to live that out at home. We have to tell others about him. We have to look as an example of, that's a Christian life. I want that. And then we demand that from our politicians who we employ. These people, you would work for the people of the state of California, and we flipped it. They're now Hollywood rock stars. Every politician is a superstar, social media, they got to do it all. And it's just not it's the people's business. You must give us an update on the campaign, where you're headed next, what's coming up, and everywhere we can connect with you, sir.
Sure. We're in right now, and we'll be at an election office interviewing them fairly shortly, and then we're going to head south, and we'll be in Napa for a quick town hall. If anybody wants to join us for that town hall, they would just find us on the just go to my website, hermsforcali.com, and click on the event calendar. And then we're going through Santa Rosa. I'm very interested to see what they'll do in San Francisco, Oakland area in regards to elections. See if some places don't even welcome me in their doors, and that's a huge clue. And then we're going to finish off the election tour shortly, and then throughout May, we'll do probably 8 rally-style events, and that will be pretty exciting also.
Awesome. And then best place to donate, support, follow the campaign, where would you like to send the listeners?
I would like to go to hermsforcali.com. You can click on any of from there, you can get to any of my social media, Facebook, X, whatever you want to get to, and you can volunteer or donate right there on the website.
All right. So there it is, hermsforcali.com. I want to thank you, sir, so much for coming on. And I believe this, like the sun's rising tomorrow. If a non-Democrat was running California, it has super important benefits to the rest of the nation. So we want to make sure that we at least give California one last shot. I don't know how they survive 8 more years of the same. You can't be done. This is a final stop. This is it for states like Colorado, California, all these places that need overhaul. So God be with you, sir. We thank you so much, folks. Do this next time. Serve the Lord. Tell a friend about him. Stay good. God bless everybody.
The Matthew Dark Show, your one-stop show for truth, courage, fellowship, and faith. Available everywhere you get your podcasts.